"Hey old man, mind if I borrow your rank for a day?" The young SEAL smirked, loud enough for the whole mess hall to hear. The veteran's fork froze mid-air. Silence swallowed the room. "You want my rank?" he said, voice calm but deadly. "Tell me why you think you deserve it before I decide." The young SEAL's grin wavered. Every eye in the hall was on them. Nobody moved. Something told everyone this was no ordinary joke. Well, the young SEAL stammered, suddenly aware of the dozen pairs of eyes boring into him. He tried to straighten his back, attempt some bravado, but the confident grin he had moments ago felt hollow. The veteran set his fork down carefully, the metal clinking sharply against the plate. He leaned back slightly, letting his presence fill the room. "Do you know what it took to earn this?" His gaze swept across the hall, then returned to the SEAL. "Every medal, every stripe, earned in places you'll never see, in situations you'll never understand." The mess hall was painfully silent. Even the cooks paused, carrying trays mid-step. The young SEAL's buddy nudged him, whispering, "Oh, maybe back off." But the young man shook his head stubbornly, forcing a laugh. "Come on, sir. I've been in the field. I've done missions. I can handle it." The veteran's eyes narrowed. "Missions? Do you understand the cost of a mistake? One wrong move and lives are gone. Do you even know how it feels to watch a teammate fall and know you couldn't stop it?" A cold shiver ran down the SEAL's spine. He opened his mouth, trying to fire back a joke, but no words came. The mess hall felt smaller now, heavier. Soldiers leaned in, sensing the invisible tension thickening the air. The veteran's voice dropped even lower, calm but lethal. "If you want to wear my rank, you'll need more than courage. You'll need discipline, humility, and the ability to put someone else's life before your own ego. Can you do that?" The young SEAL swallowed hard. His smirk was gone, replaced with uncertainty. Around him, whispers started, quiet murmurs about the veteran, about the missions no one dares talk about, and about how the old man wasn't just any retired officer. He was a legend. He looked down at the floor, noticing the scuff marks on his boots, the way the linoleum reflected the harsh overhead lights, and the faint smell of burnt coffee lingering in the air. His mind raced. Every joke, every casual insult, every smirk now felt like a misstep into dangerous territory. The veteran leaned forward slightly, a faint smile playing at the corner of his lips, not mocking, but challenging. "You have 10 minutes to prove to me why you deserve to wear this rank. Convince me, or consider your lesson learned." The young SEAL glanced around desperately. He had no plan, no impressive story. The room was holding its breath. Even the clatter of trays seemed distant. Somewhere deep inside, he realized this wasn't just a joke anymore. This was a test that could either elevate him or humiliate him in front of everyone. And in that instant he understood. Every moment from here on would be measured, judged, and remembered. The young SEAL's heart pounded like a drum in his chest. 10 minutes. That's all he had to prove he was worthy, or face the humiliation of failure in front of the entire mess hall. He straightened, trying to muster confidence, but the veteran's eyes held him in place, sharp and unyielding. Every medal glinted in the overhead lights, each telling a story the young SEAL couldn't even imagine. The room felt charged, almost electric. "I've led missions," the young SEAL stammered, trying to sound confident. "I've led reconnaissance, extraction, high-risk ops. I know the field." The veteran tilted his head slightly, studying him as if weighing every word. "And in those missions," he said slowly, voice low and deliberate, "how many times did fear make your hands shake? How many times did doubt creep in while you held the life of another in your hands?" The young SEAL's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth to answer, but hesitation stopped him. He hadn't thought about it like that. Out in the field, he followed orders, completed objectives, but fear, doubt. The veteran was forcing him to confront things he'd buried deep. A few soldiers exchanged glances. Whispers floated. "He's never broken a recruit like this before," one muttered under his breath. The atmosphere thickened. Tension hung in the air like a heavy fog dot. The veteran leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Courage is useless without control. Bravery without wisdom is dangerous. Tell me, if a teammate faltered, if someone relied on you and you failed, could you live with it?" The young SEAL's hands curled into fists. He wanted to respond with bravado, but nothing came. The veteran's gaze was a weight pressing down on him, forcing honesty, forcing reflection. Then the old man did something unexpected. He gestured toward the mess hall exit. "Walk with me," he said. "I'll show you." The young SEAL's stomach sank. The room tensed as they left the hall. Outside, the air smelled faintly of diesel and salt from the nearby docks. The veteran led him to a quiet training area, empty except for a few scattered obstacles and a sandbagged target. "Today, you'll see what rank really means," the veteran said, motioning to the makeshift course. "It's not the uniform, it's not the stripes, it's the responsibility you carry, the lives you protect, and the judgment you exercise when no one is watching." The CAL's pulse quickened. This wasn't just a physical test, it was a trial of character. He glanced at the veteran, trying to read him, to find a hint of softness, of leniency, but there was none. Only a calm, unyielding authority that demanded respect and reflection. For the first time, the young SEAL understood the gravity of what he'd provoked. This joke, this challenge, could define him or break him. And as he followed the veteran onto the course, the distant sounds of the mess hall faded, leaving only the sound of his own heartbeat echoing in the heavy silence. The sand crunched under his boots as the young SEAL followed the veteran through the training course. Every step felt heavier than the last, the salty wind whipping against his face, carrying a faint metallic tang that reminded him of blood and sweat, things he'd only ever glimpsed in stories, never truly experienced. The veteran stopped at a worn wooden platform, weathered and splintered. He gestured to a rope dangling from above. "Climb," he said, voice calm but commanding. "Reach the top. No shortcuts, no hesitation." The young SEAL smirked briefly, masking his nervousness. "Too easy," he muttered. He grabbed the rope and began climbing. Halfway up, his arms burned, muscles trembling under the strain. Sweat stung his eyes, dripping down his forehead. He looked down and felt the vertigo of height, the gnawing fear of falling. He wanted to laugh it off, make a joke, but the veteran's eyes, cold and unyielding, bore into him. The weight of expectation pressed down, heavier than any physical strain. "Focus." The veteran's voice cut through the wind. "Discipline. Control. Every decision matters. One slip, one moment of arrogance, and you fail." The young SEAL's grip faltered. Doubt crept in. "Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I'm in over my head." But then he remembered the mess hall, the frozen stares of his peers, the unspoken challenge. He clenched his jaw, muscles screaming, and pulled himself upward, hand over hand. At the top, he gasped, chest heaving. The veteran's face didn't change. Good. But that was just the beginning. Strength is worthless without judgment. Courage is meaningless without responsibility. The veteran led him to a series of targets downrange, simulated hostiles, obstacles, and scenarios meant to test both skill and decision-making. "You'll engage," he said, "but one mistake, one error in judgment, and you'll learn what the rank really costs." The young SEAL raised his weapon, heart racing. He fired, calculated, but then a target moved unexpectedly. He hesitated, unsure of the proper protocol. The veteran's shadow fell across him. "Hesitation costs lives," he said quietly, almost a whisper. The words carried weight, echoing in the SEAL's mind. Every action now was measured, every thought scrutinized. The veteran didn't speak much, just observed, letting each mistake and hesitation teach a silent lesson. Sweat, fear, and adrenaline intertwined, leaving the young SEAL raw, exposed, and aware of his limitations. By the time the trial ended, his arms ached, lungs burned, and pride stung worse than any physical exhaustion. The veteran finally nodded, a faint acknowledgement of effort. "You've begun to understand," he said. "But understanding is only the first step. The rank is more than muscle or skill. It's patience, wisdom, and humility in the face of chaos." The young SEAL stumbled, absorbing the lesson. For the first time, he realized that this challenge wasn't just about proving himself. It was about confronting the arrogance that had led him to mock a legend in the first place. The young SEAL's body was trembling, exhaustion clawing at every limb. Sweat ran in rivulets down his face, mixing with the grit on his uniform. The veteran watched silently, arms crossed, eyes scanning with a piercing calm that made the SEAL feel as though every thought was visible. "Enough physical trials," the veteran finally said, voice low and deliberate. "Now we see if you can face the truth about yourself." The SEAL straightened, wary. "The truth?" he asked, a hint of bravado still clinging. "Yes," the veteran replied. "Rank isn't about your muscles. It isn't about courage in the field. It's about character, and the first lesson is humility. Do you know why I wear these stripes?" He tapped the medals on his chest lightly. "Because I survived things that would break most men. And every time I did, it wasn't skill alone that saved me. It was learning from failure, respecting those around me, and never letting arrogance cloud judgment. The young SEAL's jaw tightened. He had thought he understood courage, but the veteran's words were a mirror reflecting his ignorance. "Walk with me," the veteran said, leading him to the edge of the training field where a makeshift memorial stood. A series of plaques and pictures commemorating fallen SEALs. The wind carried a faint scent of salt and metal, and the quiet hum of the distant mess hall felt miles away. "These men," the veteran said, voice breaking slightly for the first time, "trusted me to lead them. Every life mattered. Every decision I made counted, and when I failed, I carried that weight forever." The young SEAL's throat tightened. He looked at the photographs, young faces frozen in time, smiles that would never return. For the first time, the gravity of responsibility, the unseen cost of rank, struck him. "I mocked your rank," the SEAL whispered, his voice small, almost ashamed. "I didn't understand. I thought it was just stripes, just a symbol." The veteran studied him for a long moment. Then, softly, he said, "Symbols mean nothing without respect for the lives behind them. Do you understand now?" The SEAL nodded, swallowing hard. The bravado had evaporated, replaced with something heavier: awareness, humility, and a newfound respect. The veteran's eyes softened, just slightly, acknowledging the shift. "You've begun to understand what it takes," the veteran said. "But knowing and embodying it are two very different things. Remember this: rank is earned daily, not joked about casually. It's a living responsibility." For a long moment, silence enveloped them, filled only by the whispering wind and the distant echo of the mess hall. The young SEAL realized he had been tested in every way, physically, mentally, and emotionally. He had confronted the arrogance that led him to mock a legend and felt the weight of true responsibility for the first time. The veteran's gaze held his, steady and unyielding, a silent promise that this lesson would follow him forever. And somewhere deep inside, the young SEAL knew nothing would ever feel the same again. The wind howled across the training field, whipping at uniforms and carrying the faint tang of salt and metal. The young SEAL's hands shook slightly, not from fear of the physical trials, but from the weight of what he now understood. The veteran stood silently beside him, the calm in his eyes more intimidating than any enemy. "Today," the veteran said, voice firm, "you will lead the exercise. No guidance. Every decision, every order, every life on this course is yours to command. Prove to me you can shoulder it." The young SEAL swallowed hard, feeling the enormity of the moment. His team looked to him with expectation, and for the first time, he felt the responsibility that came with rank. The invisible weight that wasn't just about authority, but about accountability. The exercise began. Simulated hostels emerged, alarms blared, smoke curled around obstacles. Every instinct he had learned in training now had to merge with the lessons from the veteran. Hesitation could be deadly. He barked commands, steady but deliberate, focusing on every teammate's position, anticipating threats, guiding movements. A simulated casualty fell, one of the junior SEALs wounded in the scenario, and the young SEAL reacted instantly, prioritizing safety over ego, making decisions that balanced speed with strategy. The veteran's shadow followed him silently, observing every choice, but offering no interference. The young SEAL realized he wasn't performing for approval anymore. He was performing because he understood the stakes. Suddenly, a simulated ambush erupted on the far side. Heart racing, the young SEAL took a deep breath, assessing the situation with clarity he hadn't possessed before. Without hesitation, he directed his team, adjusting tactics on the fly, anticipating errors, protecting his wounded teammates. By the end of the exercise, the course was secured, all simulated threats neutralized. The young SEAL's chest heaved, muscles screaming, but his eyes held something new, quiet confidence born from experience, humility, and responsibility. The veteran finally spoke, voice calm yet carrying immense weight. "You did well. Not perfect, but well. You made mistakes, yes, but you learned from them, and more importantly, you protected your team. That is what rank truly demands." The mess hall was still miles away, but the young SEAL could almost hear the memory of the earlier silence. The stares, the weight of every joke he had made. He now understood that leadership was not a symbol to mock. It was a responsibility to honor. For the first time, he looked at the veteran, not as an obstacle, but as a mirror, someone who had survived, endured, and carried the weight of others' lives with unwavering integrity. He nodded slowly. Words are necessary. Respect had been earned, and a lesson had been etched into his soul. The veteran clapped him lightly on the shoulder. Rank is not given for jokes or bravado. It is given for understanding what it truly costs. Never forget this lesson. The young SEAL exhaled, a mixture of relief and newfound humility flooding through him. The storm of the day had passed, leaving him transformed. No longer just a soldier, but a leader learning what it meant to carry the weight of honor, duty, and responsibility. The young SEAL walked back to the mess hall, boots crunching softly on the gravel, his uniform streaked with sweat and dust. The veteran followed silently, a calm presence beside him. For the first time, the young man felt the weight of his words and actions, not as a joke, but as a responsibility he now understood. As they entered the mess hall, the chatter that had filled the room hours ago was gone. Soldiers paused mid-bite, eyes tracking the pair. The veteran's gaze swept the room, landing briefly on the young SEAL. There was no pride, no indulgence, only acknowledgement. The young SEAL approached his table slowly, head slightly bowed, carrying both exhaustion and humility. He felt the eyes of his peers, some skeptical, some impressed. He realized that this was more than proving himself to the veteran. It was proving to everyone, and most importantly to himself, that he was ready to lead with integrity, not arrogance. Sitting down, he allowed himself a quiet breath. The veteran's voice broke the silence. Today, you earned something that can't be taken lightly. The rank, the respect, it's not a reward, it's a responsibility. Remember that every day. The young SEAL nodded, words failing him. Inside, a storm had passed. What remained was clarity, humility, and an awareness that leadership was a mantle heavier than he had ever imagined. The room began to buzz softly again, but now the energy was different. There was a quiet respect, a sense that something important had shifted. Soldiers whispered to each other about what had happened, about how the young SEAL had faced the veteran's trial and emerged changed, not perfect, but enlightened. Later, when the veteran left the hall, the young SEAL lingered, gazing at the empty seats where the stories of sacrifice and courage had once echoed. He remembered the memorial, the photographs of fallen comrades, and the lesson that each medal, each stripe, represented more than achievement. It represented lives entrusted to one's judgment, courage, and care. The young SEAL finally stood, feeling a strange mix of relief and reverence. The arrogance that had led him to mock a legend was gone, replaced with a quiet determination to lead differently, wisely, and with honor. He caught a glimpse of the veteran's departing silhouette and whispered under his breath, almost to himself, "Thank you, sir. I understand now." Outside, the wind carried the faint tang of salt and metal, a reminder of the trials endured and the lessons learned. The young SEAL walked forward with steady steps, each one echoing with purpose. He had been tested, humbled, and transformed. And though the rank he once joked about was now a symbol of weighty responsibility, he knew he would carry it with the respect it deserved. The mess hall returned to its normal rhythm, but for the young SEAL, nothing would ever feel ordinary again. He had faced a legend, confronted his arrogance, and discovered the true meaning of leadership. The lesson was etched, not just on his uniform,